Hi there, everyone. Welcome. So happy to have you here today. Today, we are going to be doing a craft idea or a few different craft ideas from the Dollar Tree and using some recycled materials. Let's go over our supplies for our first project today. We'll have 4 of these candles that we're going to use. They come in lots of different colors from the Dollar Tree. Also some glass containers from Dollar Tree. We'll use these blue ones and these little square ones, but they also have some out recently that look like tulips, which would also work for this project. It's really up to you and what your preference is. Then we're going to need some tape, some dowel rods, the wick from the tall candles, 2 brads to help hold them together, and these little like hair clips. We'll need some hot pad holders and a microwave. Also some alcohol to clean our containers, and some rub-on transfers to help decorate the containers, which of course is optional. So let's get crafty. So the first thing we're going to do is remove this plastic paper that is covering the candle, and I'll put them in the microwave. I start warming them up on high for about 2 minutes, and then you can see how much has melted so far. They're really hot, so please be careful. I ended up warming these up for about 8 minutes total. You can see how they slowly melt in the microwave, and then it's not completely melted, but at this stage is when I pull the wick out of the candle. While the rest of the wax is melting, I get the wicks ready for the candles that we're going to make. So just wrap this around the dowel rod until we have it the length that we need, and we'll set this right in the middle of the candle and then tape it together. Or you could just use some thicker dowel rods that are a little bit taller so you don't have to tape it. Then when I pull the wax out, I stir to make sure it's completely melted, and then we'll go ahead and pour the wax into the container, and it's that simple. Now, the main thing is you want to make sure that that wick stays above the top. We'll trim it later once the whole thing is dry. You can fill it with a little bit more wax if you like. Just make sure you leave room for the lid. For these smaller votives, I had some extra wax after I filled 2 of the larger candles. So that's why I'm going to take some wick that I was able to cut down, and we're going to put it in between the brad and then just fold the brad over to hold the wick in place. So those are like those little metal things that you see in the bottom of the candle when it's completely done. It holds the wick. That's essentially what we're making here. So now we're going to pour a tiny little bit of wax into the bottom of this votive, and it'll cool pretty quickly just because it's in that glass and you only have a little tiny bit of wax, so it starts to harden kind of quick. And then we'll stick the brad right down into the center to hold the wick in place. And I just tap it down with whatever you have. I have that hair clip there. And then I'm going to clip the hair clip onto the top of the wick and just lay it right across the top of this small votive. And that will hold the wick in place while the wax sets up. Then go ahead and pour your wax into your votive. And we'll decorate the outside of these later as well. So I had 2 different color blue candles. So I did one dark blue, one light blue, and then I had a little bit extra dark blue and just a tiny little bit of the light blue. So I actually layered them. When I first poured the dark blue, I waited about 5 minutes, and then I poured the light blue on top to make this layered candle look. So that was a fun idea as well. Once they're hardened, go ahead and take the clips off. I let mine harden overnight. And we have these beautiful candles all set up. And again, we're just using the wax from the Dollar Tree pillar candles that they sell, or those tall glass pillar candles. So this is what they look like in the blue containers. We're going to take this alcohol and clean the outside of the container to make sure that the rub-on transfers will stick. First, I have this blue leaf pattern that I'm going to put on the lighter blue candle with the blue lid. This sticks really well. It's not enough to wrap all the way around, so you'll have to do 2 stages here. But all I do is I lay that on top of the glass once it's been cleaned to make sure there's no wax residue on the outside or fingerprints. Then you'll just rub over top of the transfer to move this onto the glass, and then peel back slowly. If you notice any pieces that don't want to stick, you can go ahead and lay it right back down and go back over it if you need to. And we'll do this all the way around. I know the pattern doesn't completely match, but you can't burn these with the lid on. And I thought they looked pretty once you took the lid off to have the outside kind of decorated, just in case you don't want to put the lids on at all. And then you can always recycle these jars once the candles have been burned all the way down and use it for something else if you like. So always hold on to those. Then I had this gold transfer, and I just wanted to see what it looked like. I know it doesn't match again. It's not perfect, but there's lots of different transfers Dollar Tree sells throughout the year. There's also like stickers and things you could decorate it. You could probably even paint it with their new ceramic paint, or leave it as is, really up to you. The smaller votives here, we're going to again clean those with the alcohol, and then I use these blue floral rub-on transfers, which I thought was so cute to put all the way around the little votives, and we did all 3 with the same pattern. And here they are all completely finished. It is a fun project, kind of make some Dollar Tree glass containers our own. So for our second project, for those candles we use, we're going to use those glass jars now. We'll use this canvas pad and some clear stamps from the Dollar Tree. We're also going to need the stamping pads and then some twine or cotton. It's really up to you. We'll also need Sharpies or stamp pads, and then I'm going to use a few wooden beads and a hot glue gun. So let's get crafty. We're taking those glass pieces from the candle that we did in the last craft, and we're going to wipe them down, clean them with the alcohol, and then we'll use them by covering them with the sheets of canvas that we decorate. So the first thing I did is I measured, because I want to cut the excess off. I ended up not doing that for the next 2 just because the canvas was a little bit thinner than I thought it was going to be. It just wasn't necessary. It didn't cause any extra bulk, and it looked just fine by leaving it on. But for this one, we just measured. It's really up to you though what you want to do. I take one of the larger stamps from the stamp sheet from Dollar Tree. I color over it with a Crayola marker in dark brown, and then I stamp it onto the canvas. So we're working in reverse. We're doing the back side of the canvas because I like the color a little bit better, especially for the look that I was going for this project. But you can stamp either side of the canvas. It's really up to you. So that's our first stamp. Now, if you're going to use the Sharpie markers, I tend to find that the black Sharpie marker on the stamps dry really quickly. So you're going to want to layer it with a marker that keeps it a little bit more wet, a little bit longer. If not, then you might not get as dark of a color as you like, but I tend to only find that to be an issue when I use the black Sharpie. Every other color seems to work fine, so I'm not sure what it is with the black Sharpie. But all I did to kind of fix that problem is I start with the Crayola marker, then I do the Sharpie, and I do Crayola on top of it, and just kind of do that layers. You get lots of ink on the stamp, and then use it in that way. You can use a stamp pad if you like. They sell those at Dollar Tree as well. They have them in green, red, and blue. They do not have black, at least right now they don't. Then what we're going to do is just completely fill in your whole entire canvas, you know, how you like. You can add as much or as little as you like. You can even add words. There's lots of stamps with different sayings that they sell. But again, you can use a stamp pad if you like. You can find them at like Hobby Lobby and Michael's as well. They're not too terribly expensive. But the markers for me, I like to use them. So that's why I use them. Now we're going to take that canvas that we've got decorated, and we're going to add just a little bit of hot glue and start rolling this around our glass jar. And we're going to do just a little bit of glue at a time, and then hold the canvas nice and tight as we roll it to make sure there's no air bubbles underneath or creases. Then we start with some twine at the top. As you can see, there's kind of like a beveled edge at the very top, so you can't get the canvas really tucked in there all that great. So I just cover that raw edge up with the twine, cut off any little excess hairs that are sticking out off of the twine, and that's what it looks like. And you might have to trim the bottom of the canvas just because it hangs over that bottom edge a little bit. Then I take another piece of twine and I add 2 wood beads, 1 to each side, and I add that to our bow. It's a very simple bow. You just make some loops and tie the center off to make a bow, and then you'll glue that all together. And then I decided to use mine as a vase. I added some large pink peonies to this to make a vase. And then the second one, I used the color Sharpie. Now the color Sharpie just tends to work better. I don't understand why. What's the rhyme or reason that it works a little bit better on the stamps, but it does. The red color that you see here, I'm using the Jot brand permanent markers, and those work really well. You want to go over the stamp a few times. 1 layer of ink's not going to be enough, but they do work really well on the canvas. Now the Sharpie for the smaller one, again, you can use just a Sharpie by itself. I like using the markers because I feel like I have more control. So you can see this leaf that I'm adding to the flower, I'm just coloring the top of the stamp because I have that control with a marker. I don't have to fill the whole stamp in. I can make the leaf a little bit smaller and add that to the flower. And you would never know if you weren't watching me do it that it wasn't its own stamp. So you can kind of, do half of a stamp, half of a flower, kind of fill it in. Just kind of use the stamps in different ways than you would if you had just a stamp pad to use them with. But really, it's just up to you. Now, one thing I think that's important to do when you're using these stamps and filling in a piece of paper like this, sometimes you want to stop and back up away from your project. I say this all the time. Sometimes you just need to take a step back when you're up close working on it. Sometimes it's hard to tell where you still have some open spaces or where maybe you're being a little heavy-handed with the decoration and you need to spread it out a little bit. So always take a step back for a minute and look at your project and see, do you have enough? Do you need a little bit more in one spot or another? And that will help you kind of spread it out and get a nice pattern going for your project. And then we just decorated our glass in the same way. I just used some different twine and different color beads to coordinate with the color of stamps that I used. Now for the last one, I decided to use this Crafters Square rub-on transfer. We just tape it to the canvas, again on the reverse, and then go over the whole entire thing with a craft stick to make sure that the ink is being transferred onto the canvas. I go over the whole entire sheet. And then I pull it off and we've got this really fun design. I love this picture so much. It always makes me laugh. All the dogs on the one side, cats on the other. I know it's supposed to be two different rooms. It's actually two different transfers. You're just supposed to use half. But I think they look so cute. So I like putting them together. And here's our 3 different vases that we made. Upcycling. So the supplies we need for our third project, again, upcycling. We'll use some recyclable cans, some decorative nautical rope, and some heart lace ribbon from Dollar Tree from Valentine's Day. I'm going to be using a pool noodle, or you can have craft foam, and we'll use some flowers of your choice. We'll need some hot glue and some scissors. So what we're going to do for this one is we are just upcycling these cans. I wanted to do some fun flower arrangements, but I don't want to have to spend the extra money on the pot to put the flowers in. I had the rope already. I had a bunch of flowers I've been wanting to use up. They're pieces from like leftover crafts where I didn't use all the flowers, and I wanted to use some of those flowers up. So I want to do this as economically as possible. So I decided to go ahead and just clean some of these cans that I was going to end up just recycling anyways and using those for the project. Once we're done, you're not going to know it's a can under there anyways, so why not? All we do is remove the label and clean it, and then use some hot glue to start wrapping the twine or the ribbon or the rope, whatever you choose to use, all the way around your can, completely filling it in. If you're using this rope, you want to kind of pull on the rope to make it tight, and that helps it to lay really flat as you glue it on. Also, you want to make sure that you're pushing the rope down onto the rope below it, so it sticks to the can and the rope as you go, and that will really help hold it all together and get a nice smooth finish. Then you'll cut off the excess rope at the top, glue that edge down, and if it's not super neat at the top edge, don't worry about it because we're going to take that ribbon that we showed in the supply list and we're going to glue that around that top edge and fill that all in there. And then once all the flowers are in, you're not going to see that whole opening, and it will look really nice and have a nice clean edge when you're finished. If you're using lace and hot glue, it's nice to have some kind of a craft stick or something you can use to help push the material down, just because the glue wants to go through that material. It's really easy to burn yourself, so be careful. And as you can see, the bottom edge here where it overlaps just a little bit, I glue it together to help line it up and keep it together. So that's our pot for the flowers all finished. We'll add some hot glue down inside of the can, and then we cut a pool noodle down to size so it's a little bit lower than the top, and glue that to the center. And then kind of figure out what your arrangement's going to look like before you add any glue or any holes to the foam. And then once you kind of got an idea of what you're going to work with, then go ahead and add a little bit of glue to the stem and then pop it into the foam as you work to help hold it in place, and you're going to get a nice secure hold. Like I said, I'm using a bunch of leftover flowers and greenery and baby's breath and things like that from old projects where I didn't use all the flowers. I was using a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I always hold on to the excess, but then I end up with a ton of extra flowers and not enough to really, make a bunch of different things with. So I was like, let me see what I can pull together. And this seemed to work out really well. And I'm so happy with the way it turned out. And it's nice to be able to upcycle and reuse items over again so they don't end up in the trash. But here's all of our projects together. I hope you guys enjoyed learning to make these crafts with me today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Click that thumbs up and the like button. And don't forget to share and leave a comment. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate you stopping by, and I hope to see you again next time.